Welcome back to another exciting episode of Heavy Revy TV. I'm your host, Brian, and this is my wonderful wife, Shauna, and we are the Christians. Maybe not in the religion, but that's our last name. Hallelujah. Anyway, first and foremost, we want to say thank you to all those that heard my cry for help and my freak out yesterday as I was losing my you-know-what over this RV. We're going down the road and it's a trip because we're going down the road and I think we were on the phone with Crystal. You were driving the truck. We're doing a three-way call. I'm following her. It's windy, it's rainy, and we need the headlights on.
And we're going up and down mountains.
And we need the headlights on. And the windshield wipers, I noticed, man, why are they going so slow? And I'm like, I go to use my turn signal. Where's my turn signal? I don't understand this. And then Crystal's like, well, how's the drive been? I said, you know what? It's really been peaceful. And immediately this big red light showed up. Don't shift. And I'm stuck in fourth gear. And we have nowhere to pull over. And so I'm driving in fourth gear going, oh no. And then we come to a stoplight because we're going through a town, but there's still nowhere to pull over. And I have to stop and go in fourth gear, and it's all, and I can't use the headlights. I can't use anything. And so we finally pull over and I'm like, what just happened? And well, it was the battery. You guys saw the post. We were having some connective wire from the alternator to the solenoid to the battery, but it's about a 40-foot wire that needs to be replaced. So, and many of you have blessed us. Mm-hmm. You've, we brought in a little over half the amount. The last estimate we had when we went to a shop and they were going to do that, but we didn't have the money. So they did a rig job. They rigged it and it looked like it worked, which now it doesn't. They estimated at about $2,000 to rip it apart and run a wire all the way down and rehook it up and switch out a few solenoids and all of that. And so you guys are making that possible. So thank you.
Yes.
But during that moment, I freaked out. And Shauna's like, do not go live if you're triggered. I said, well, I am triggered, but I'm going to be nice with my trigger. Okay. Because I am where I am. And I think the more that we stop trying to appear to be super spiritual or having it all together, the more that we're authentic. And so I'm the authentic kind of guy. Shauna knows this.
Right.
And there'll be times she's all, no, don't even say anything right now. You're too authentic. And I'm like, I'm just going to let it out. If people don't like it.
Some people can't handle other people's authenticity.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about.
That's what we're going to be talking about. And so thanks to all of you, praying for us, sending glory vibes and, and sending money to bless us. Last night, I took some time and went within, listened to several messages, several comments that people sent me about this isn't who you are. And I remember Saloma sent me one that just really touched me. This isn't who you are. You don't lack. You don't need to worry about these things. You don't need to run around with your head cut off. You can just be. Just be. And even though I ran around with my head cut off for about 2 hours, and then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be. Everything still came together running around with my head cut off. So I think what we have to understand is we think that somehow, if we're not in control of our situation, somehow we have failed something, that somehow we're weak or powerless. And those situations come to expose that crap so that we can just simply rest and just let things unfold as they're supposed to. And well, it unfolded and you guys have just been amazing and we're just so blessed. And so we know that, we have a gathering coming up this weekend in New York. We will be there. We're about 5 hours away. And so we won't be working on this RV until after that conference and we head towards Indiana. That's when we're going to do it. So we got a charger. I drilled a hole through the floor in the bedroom. right above where the batteries are in.
He's like a MacGyver.
And, I've got it plugged in. So we're using a charger to charge our batteries, and it's working. So we caught the batteries in time before we killed another set.
So and I think that's part of it too, is even though sometimes you feel helpless and out of control, there's also, gratitude. Mm-hmm. We were like, wow, this could have been so much worse, and so we sat there also grateful, like, oh God, we caught it in time. Thank God.
Yes.
And I feel like that also helps, and not like making ourselves grateful, but it's over here.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah, good job, honey.
I know, man. I'm messing things up.
Yes.
Can't be looking behind the curtain.
It's a Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
The man behind the curtain.
Anyway.
But yeah, so I think there's different postures, but just being real with when you feel like you feel like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yes.
Go ahead and allow yourself to feel that.
Yeah, it's okay.
And as a wife, I just let him go ahead and be like a chicken with his head cut off.
Here's
and
the
just
thing.
Love and support.
You need to freak out
sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you do.
Freaking out does not take away from who you are or where you are going. And this doesn't justify fear or worry or doubt or lack. What this does is it exposes it so that you can realize it's not a threat to you.
Right.
Especially, and here was one thing for me, coming from a background of perfectionism and low self-worth.
Well, I was just going to say, what causes perfectionism?
Well, low self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
It's I can't measure up. So now I've got to go over and above to
Mm-hmm.
prove that I deserve love or, deserve to be blessed or,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. You ever notice those times where you did everything right in your mind and you were just on point and you prayed and you've been meditating and you haven't cussed in 2 weeks and, you're not struggling. And when you believe for something and it happens, you're like, yes. And you expect it to happen based on your ability to measure up.
Right.
And that was me. I used to expect things to work if I did everything right. But if I judged myself as not being spiritual
Mm-hmm.
or not being in faith, and then I still got the same blessing, even though I freaked out, which happens to me quite often, I would then say, I'd feel ashamed that I didn't do everything right, and now I don't deserve
Mm-hmm.
to receive the blessing because I didn't measure up. And I think a lot of people are in that place measuring whether or not they have spiritually passed the test in order to receive the promise, when there really was no test in the first place. It was simply an exposure of what needed to be dealt with so that we can let go and we can come into a place of embrace. And so we got to let it out. I let it out, and it felt good to let it out. And so I'm not ashamed, and I'm not apologizing for me letting it out. I needed to do that because one thing I'm understanding is sometimes when it appears there is a need in your life, that doesn't necessarily mean you lack something. Sometimes needs are put in your life to create a community so that you can know one another's hearts. I know there have been plenty of times in our lives where there was no way we were going to be able to do this on our own. We needed everyone in our life to uphold us, to help us, whether it be an encouraging word. And let me tell you, I don't care how spiritual you are, how much revelation you have. Too many people will think, oh, well, Brian and Shauna, man, they just know it all. No, we don't. We need encouragement just like anybody else. We need to remember who we are just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the same boat as everybody else. And so, it is really important that we, understand that sometimes the needs we have that we can't meet on our own in our name it, claim it, blab it, grab it, prayer closet, fasting, decreeing, raising our frequency, is because the Father wants to bring a bunch of people around to meet that need. And it really wasn't even about the need.
Right.
It was about knowing that you're covered, that you're loved, that you're cared for, that you're celebrated. And that brings you to another level. Thank you, Sherry. And, my brain don't know how to trust, but my heart does. So I just bypass that brain and sometimes have to work out that brain.
Yeah.
Yes,
you have to exhaust the brain sometimes.
Yes. And so that was a little side note to what we were going to kind of come into today as we talk about what is your life really about. And we want to simplify it because we're getting so many downloads right now, so much deconstruction, so much reconstruction that we're like, okay, my head is spinning. And I've talked to several people over the past 8 months specifically that are like, all right, where I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that, I'm overloaded. I just gotta take a break from multimedia. I just gotta take a break from hearing everybody because people are overwhelmed because they're trying to find the answer of what they're supposed to do and be, and they're trying to get the right truth so they don't get deceived and they don't want to miss it because they're judging their present stance based on their past destruction in their mindset and what they lost before. And, life is not about us obtaining anything. It really isn't. In fact, by the time you attain it all and you get to the highest realm of the eternal ether of the cosmic Christ, and you've been in the liquid love of the love soup and the primordial realm of subatomic creatures and dimensions and all of that. Once you get to that, guess what you want? You don't care about any of that. All you really care about is loving, living, and experiencing life. It's no longer about, do I have the right answer? Do I have the wrong answer? Am I missing it? How do I attain it?
Right.
There is none of that. All that goes away. So I'm going to save you guys. Now, obviously, nobody can just hear what I'm saying and take it. They have to experience it. So you have to walk through this experience. But hopefully we'll give you a shortcut today so that you're not, stuck in that mode of trying to ascend when you are already the ascended ones. You are already seated in the ascension. There isn't anywhere to ascend. There is just a remembrance of where you've always been. And that remembrance comes when we stop seeking the need to remember and we start engaging in the present embrace of simply experiencing life. Anything you want to add to that, honey?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what the heart that of us kind of talking about what we were like, what are we going to talk about? And we've just been talking to a lot of different people and how, you also hear and see everybody on different journeys.
Yes.
And I think just be out of fear and, again, not wanting to be deceived and everything else, we want everyone to kind of be in the truth that we are in or to use the tools that we are using. And then there's other family members, friends, whatever, acquaintances, Facebook people that want to correct or redirect people or, question and all this kind of stuff. So you see a lot of that kind of going on everywhere. And so I think the heart of the matter really is can we love one another truly, unconditionally, without having to all be on the same, doing the same things? Because we think that if everybody's doing the same things, then that's the right way. But what if there is no right way for one specific person, for everybody, if that makes sense? What if everybody is on their own journey? Kind of like you said, you can hear this message, you can hear revelation, you can hear truth, but you still have to journey it out in your way. Yes. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that people are missing it or people are less than. I think a lot of people coming into even oneness and truth, they're like, oh, we got to save people out of religion. Well, that's no different than needing the savior, having the savior complex of everybody needing to be saved and come into, who Jesus is and all of that. It's what if we're here to actually just love one another?
Yeah.
And not to change or save. Exactly. And not to change or save anyone, not even ourselves.
Yes.
What if we don't have to try to change or save ourselves?
Yes.
You know?
Exactly. So, no, that's beautiful, honey. And, I think about, all of the need to do, the need to think, the need to have this truth and have that truth. And, Jesus said you got to lose your life to save it. And that has been so twisted into now I'm determined. Did I lose my life? Is this the life I'm supposed to be finding? And we get so caught up in the is the word right? Semantics. We get so caught up in the details of what we think we should and shouldn't be and should and shouldn't do that we miss the whole point of being. And I know for me, I can be very offensive, and I don't mean to be offensive, obviously, but I piss a lot of people off. And one of the things, because I'm like asking God, okay, what am I doing wrong? And should I present myself differently? Because I try to be all things to all people. And I immediately heard, no, your authenticity challenges people's boxes. And, because authenticity is the absence of judging anything. I mean, you can't be authentic as long as you have judgments. And judgments are based in structures and conclusions about how life is supposed to be, our definition of this is as far as it can go. God can only be in this, he can't be in that. And I think a lot of times we want to force our methodologies on one another and call them facts when truths have nothing to do with facts. And I'm going to say that again. Truth has nothing to do with fact. Now, let me define fact here. Okay, we're not talking about truth having no evidence. Of course, there is scientific facts and there is evidences here and there and proof here and there. But I'm talking about the fact that a truth is a subjective experience through the lens you are currently perceiving life through. Okay. And that lens is going to change. And so when we come out of religion, we go, oh man, that wasn't truth after all. It was a lie. And we get all mad. And now we're right back on the bandwagon that religious led us into, looking for a truth that's true and has the fact so we don't get duped. Well, here's the thing. That's going to dupe you again, because that truth back there that's now a lie to you was a truth you needed to get to a truth you're currently receiving and realizing. And so to lose our life to find it is to let go of the wrong conclusion about ourselves, to let go of the lie of separation, to let go of the need to measure up. These are the things we're losing. We're not losing our life as in, oh, now I've got to be this real nice little Christian and you better not mess up and you got to cross all your T's and dot all your I's. That's religion. That's law. There's no grace in that whatsoever.
Right.
We don't have to fix our lives. We have to align our life to that which is pure perfection, which is who you actually are in your purest core state. And what if we didn't come here to do some great destiny? What if you don't need a purpose? Now that'll freak you out. There was a time, and I used to teach a lot on purpose for being here. And I would cover this and cover that. And I would cover it, because I could hear the mindsets. I would cover it because I could hear the mindsets of the people going, oh, no, I can't receive this because of this. So I'd be like, okay, if I speak on this side of their mind and this side of their mind and this side of their mind, and I show them that they have a purpose, maybe they won't crumble. Maybe they won't give up. Maybe they'll give God a chance, And now the more I journey this out, the less I need a purpose in why I'm journeying it out. Here is the purpose: to experience life, to experience visibility, to experience love. And so we're moving from, like Sherry Butts just said, we're moving from belief to knowing. We're moving from the need to believe, which is my paranoia, to make sure that I am protected and that I accomplish something, because in the background of my mind is the lie of regret trying to convince me I can't. So now I've got to do something, to be something, to prove something, to get somewhere. And what if all of that is to burn you out of that concept? All that you're doing there, spinning your wheels. I have a destiny. I have a calling. Yes, you do. And everybody's going to have their diversity in what you carry and your gift and your expression. And there's a place where we learn those things. But when those things dominate my life, I no longer experience life. I'm now trying to find some calling or destiny, and my destiny was simply to embrace my life. And that's what it means to lose your life, is to let go of the concept of attaining and embrace the reality of simply experiencing with no judgments.
I like what Daniel just said.
Daniel, you said, I feel the great spiritual paradox of this age that we are walking through is, do we need to manifest our purpose, destiny, to find happiness, or do we find contentment through acceptance and letting go of attachments? I have to go with B. We find happiness through contentment, acceptance, and letting go of attachments. And that's beautiful, brother. And, I really believe that we are in that great spiritual paradox, and I know for me, the more I journey into the eternal, the more I just want to be practical. And I don't mean practical in the absence of spirituality, but spirit dressing itself in a visible embrace of itself through one another. And all of our obstacles that look like they're in our way are obstacles of the mind that are being presented as situations, so that we can burn out of the concept of attaining or needing to protect or needing to, be 5 steps ahead just in case. That's one of my things, especially with the RV. The RV has been my biggest, or the biggest divine tool for me lately. Is I've got to fix it, because if I can't fix it, then somehow I failed my family.
Right.
And so I've had to face the fear of failing over and over and over again at different levels and different sides, because of childhood trauma, because of upbringing. You don't really realize how much childhood trauma you have until it breaks open, and we all have it, by the way. There's nobody that's exempt from it. You don't really know, because you get used to it and you think it's normal. If that's all you've known was trauma in your life, and you just keep propagating trauma, well, to you, that's normal. And therefore, it becomes justified to live from that place. Okay. And so, we only really know how much trauma we have, or how whole we are in our perception of ourselves when we're put through some of these external crucibles, or that which appears to be external, that shakes us and exposes those things that need to be dealt with and focused on, right? Yep. To think you need to fix perfection is an insult to an all-powerful God. That's right, Sherry. And so there's nothing that needs to be fixed. But there's a lot that needs to be exposed.
I was thinking kind of what Daniel was saying, and I think the idea of having a destiny and a purpose is what kind of initially draws us in to who we are. I know for me, feeling like I don't know what I want to do with my life, no direction, even going to college, but still not knowing what the heck I want to do, kind of feeling purposeless and not knowing who I am kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. And so awakening to God's love, and then kind of having a purpose in a direction flow of, maybe preaching the good news, the gospel to the world, or whatever purpose that I felt like I had, drew me in to ultimately to where I am right now.
Yes.
And so I think there's stages we go through that draws us and lead us. And again, this is the powerful realization of truth, that truth is like fluid. Yes. It isn't stagnant, it flows. And so we are constantly going from truth to truth to truth, and it doesn't negate the truth that we once had. It just is a different expression.
Yes.
And I think what happens is we get scared because we want to hold on to what we have realized, or what we have, what we felt was truth, because there's the letting go of that would mean we're now kind of floating into hopelessness or purposelessness or whatever. But I feel like there's coming a balance to a lot of different people, that the bigger destiny, the bigger purpose that we are really here for is love. And I don't mean it in a cliche way. I think it kind of gets, I've heard, all there is love, but it sounds so cliche when you haven't experienced it, or you haven't exchanged that love with others.
Yes.
And so I feel like the realization that our whole purpose here as love, engaging and experiencing love with others, is so much more or deeper than the word love, because in that little bubble of love is identity, is purpose, is all these other things. And so it isn't just simply loving, oh, I'll love that person that annoys me and I just want to freak out on them. That's not love.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not just going to say, oh, I'm going to love that person. No, I'm going to use that person that pisses me off, and I'm going to use it as a mirror to face myself, because obviously there's something about that person that I don't like about myself.
Yeah.
Again, using
judgments,
it. All the judgments and conclusions and things that prevent us from actually having true love with no judgments or conclusions for anybody else or ourselves.
That's right.
And so what if the purpose is so much more than that?
Oh, it's beautiful. Tracy put up there, purpose. Where'd it go?
Up one.
There it is. She's put purpose in the purposeless. And, let me give you an example of that. So purpose in the purposeless, when you're looking for a purpose, or you think you knew the purpose and the opposite starts happening, or it looks like something's been stolen from you, or it's been stopped or delayed, and now all of a sudden you feel like you have no purpose, or everything you thought was going to go one way and it went the other way. And that happens to Sean and I all the time. What is that? What is the purpose? The purpose is to expose the purposeless mindset that you already had in your need to pursue a purpose.
That's driving you.
Yeah.
To grab a purpose is because you're purposeless.
Yeah. So wherever we have a purpose, we walk through, the opposite happens. All of a sudden, man, I just feel like there's no purpose to this. Well, what was driving you in what you grabbed a hold of in purpose in the first place was tainted and twisted by the fear of having no purpose and the need to grab hold of it in the first place. And so what that does is it exposes where I pursued a purpose out of the belief that I had no purpose, just so I didn't have to face the inadequacy of the way in which I viewed myself. Okay, so that is what comes out. Now, once you realize that, you get a purpose, and your purpose is to help validate that everybody else has a purpose, even though they felt purposeless. And you see how that becomes a domino effect of life that stems out of just a simple, revelation that just hits us. And so,
man, I got it.
Go
Daniel just said something, and I felt it in the core of my being. Thank you for transmuting purposelessness for the collective. Oh, that just hit me like in my being, because that's it.
That's it.
Oh, it hit me.
Man, that's powerful.
It's so powerful because it's so true. And all of a sudden, as I was reading that, Daniel, I saw just like rows and rows of people just feeling like they're feeling like chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah.
And just feeling like their life has no meaning. And that is what we're doing, is showing that everything you have journeyed through has meaning. Everything you have journeyed through has purpose.
That's right.
And so all of the times that in myself where I have felt like I didn't have a voice, or it didn't matter if I spoke, or it didn't matter if I shared anything because there wouldn't be a purpose to it, has a purpose. So everything that we have felt like has been meaningless or invaluable is showing that there is value in that.
Yes.
There is value in everything. And so you are so right that, yes, we may be transmuting it, but everyone on here is transmuting something for someone else.
Yes.
And I think every time I've ever gone through something that has been painful or shocked me or shook me to my core, what has kept me going is the belief that the flipping over this is going to benefit somebody else.
That's right.
It isn't enough for me to just go through crap and pain to benefit myself.
That's right.
But the true benefit of, wow, okay, this could be good, this could be glory, this could be love to somebody else, and helps me to endure. So where I can take hold of grace, where I can take hold of love in the midst of chaos.
Yes. No, it's beautiful. You know, one of the keys here that I have found in my journey of coming into purpose is also realizing that I don't have to suffer to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we suffer. We've gone through. All of us have gone through stuff, and we go, "To suffering never end." Well, there never actually was suffering. There was the wrong concept of purpose. There was the wrong understanding of your life, and because it was misunderstood, in a false expectation of yourself, of others, of destiny, we suffered. But the suffering was really what we had concluded upon ourselves now surfacing. So there is really no suffering in that sense when it comes to us journeying through this life, because you are a spirit. And again, taking us into the eternal ether of the cosmic Christ, everybody is you. And so when you come across somebody and it's something in them you cannot stand, it's something in you have not faced. And if you will take that as purpose, you will be able to embrace yourself, love yourself, and then not only that, but love the other person, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, right? And if you don't love yourself, your neighbor's going to have a terrible time being around you, right? And so there's this divine thing going on where everybody is you, and that's oneness. And so everybody is showing you either who you are, who you're not, but where you're not, who you're not, but what you settled for, and who you're not, or what you still believe subconsciously who you're not.
Right.
And they're in front of you to be a mirror, to be that revelation of love through that interaction. So all of that is love. And, you know, it really is beautiful once we can grab hold of the truth of who we are in gratitude. Now, I think I wrote on here, I want to make sure I cover. Okay.
It's a pretty broad.
Well, what is the summation of life in this visible experience, and what is truth? Now, I want to talk a little bit more about what is truth. Okay, truth. What's the point of truth? John chapter 8, I'm going to give you a scripture here. John chapter 8, Jesus uses the scripture, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed." Now, we've taken that and we've used it for every quote as the truth that sets us free. And what that does is that sets us up to find some ultimate truth, and that somehow without it, we're going to be lacking, we're going to be susceptible to deception or unprotected. And so really there's only one truth that sets you free, and it is in John 8. And Jesus is talking to the Pharisees who are trying to get him to question his identity, and telling him, who do you think you are? You have a demon, you're a false prophet. and Jesus says, I know from whence I came and where I'm going. And it was that statement that he then followed up with, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And it was like, I know the intention of who I am gazing in to what I am manifesting. And I know that everywhere I go, I am already there. I am already secured. So I already know where I'm coming from, where I'm going. And this goes a lot along with John 3, where it says those that are born from above, born again, or which means remember their origin. Those who remember their origin are like the wind. They don't know if they're coming or going. We don't know where the wind is coming or where it's going. And so it's letting go of, the need to structure your life out of the intention of protection or the fear of loss, but it's allowing the structures of love and life to simply be your strong tower, not because you need protection, but because you need to provide a refuge for all those that still are fearful that they're not protected. Okay. And so you're able to create. Remember, the kingdom is like a seed that grows into a tree that the birds come and lodge. And as we grow and as we expand, we become an atmosphere, a signpost, a revelation in which others wake up through, which is simply mirroring them, who they truly are. And so the truth that sets you free is to know that everything you are, you already are. And that everything you're walking through is enabling you to realize that. And that everything that you're here to be is a revelation of embrace and love. I don't care what religion you're in. I really don't care. I don't believe in religion anymore. I have deconstructed most of the cultural concepts of every religion that I've ever looked into. Okay. I ain't here for religion. I ain't here to organize anything. We might have a organization in which we're utilizing the matrix in their formation to bring forth that which will wake people up from the dream of the matrix. So we do the things we do in the natural realm. We follow the rules of the simulation in the video game to a degree, but we don't get caught up in the video game as our ultimate reality. And so I don't care, if one person believes that demons are attacking him and another person believes it's the Nephilim or aliens, and another person believes it's a lower frequency and we need a higher frequency. It's all the same thing, okay? It's all a structure of conclusion and a box of religiosity in which we are trying to make people fit into our opinion of what we think they should believe. And there is no factual truth except the truth that's coming out of how you perceive yourself. It's the only truth. Because I don't care how much you can say, well, let me prove to you quantum physics here, and let me prove to you that God is real here based on what I believe. Well, go ahead. It's only going to be proved to your mind and to those who are in a similar perception as you, because it's all coming from your perception of you.
Right.
Okay. This doesn't negate those truths at all. It just means that we are not here to find facts through the opinion of a visible dimension that is a temporary reflection of an eternal beckoning and knowing that is so much deeper and bigger than what we can even visibly embrace. We're only seeing less than 3% of light right now manifesting as a body. Okay? You don't have a body. All right? You have a thought that is appearing as a body. Okay? So in that, how are we going to discern truth? By evidence around us physically, when all that we're really doing is searching the inward depths of the thoughts of our own heart, looking to find ourselves, but we think we're looking outwardly, looking for facts. Okay? So, I can say the fact is I'm on a video right now. And in the simulation, that is true. But there's a deeper realm in which I am I created a simulation and decided to go within as the ultimate divine being and gather every side of myself in the form of mankind to have a matrix visible experience. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this isn't about are demons real? Are they not real? Wherever each person is at, they've got to battle with their own mind until they come to the realization that life is simply about experiencing life and love. And there's nothing you need to do.
Right.
There's nothing you need to protect yourself from. And there's nothing you need to plan. Now, in the Matrix, you're going to plan based on being in the simulation at certain levels. But there's a higher place, a higher self that is simply enjoying the fact of visibility, or the reality, or not even the fact, the experience of visibility. I mean, are we visibly here? No, we're not visibly here. Okay? We are a frequency dreaming in the sitcom called Visibility. We call it Saturday Night Live. This is Saturday Night Live, okay? At multiple levels. I don't care if you've ascended to being a light being that can shape shift, and you are now in the 9th dimension. You're still in another level of a dream, having a visible sitcom of Saturday Night Live from a completely different perspective, okay?
Andrea had a good question, because it's kind of what I wanted to talk about too. How do we explain this to others who think we have missed it?
Oh, yeah. How do we explain this to others who think we have missed it? Well, you can't explain it. That's the thing. And you're free not to. And Jesus never explained himself. And if the term New Age was used in the days of Jesus, he would have been called a New Ager. See, what are we really afraid of? We label things that are do not touch, do not taste, because we've been taught to do that. Mm-hmm. We've been taught by fear-based preachers, fear-based people, to not touch or taste because, well, there's the one side of it, and that is those that have used fear to control people will lose their control because people will lose their fear. That's one thing. The other thing is people are afraid of what they do not understand, because what they really do not understand is themselves. And the one thing we are more afraid of than anything else is to see ourselves and to meet ourselves in our true identity and nature. Mm-hmm. And so, no, this isn't a New Age teaching, Luke. This is a Now Age. And it's a Now Age that is actually based in the original ancient. So if I wanted to get into facts that aren't really facts, or histories that aren't really histories, but are history on a finite temporal level for the sake of those that are still asleep in the 3D as their ultimate reality, I will use histories. I will use ancient texts. There I go again. I keep knocking this thing over.
You're Italian.
Yeah. And so, you know, I will use those things to a degree. It still sounds like works to me. Why is your interpretation of the gospel different than the gospels? Who wrote the gospels? Oh, that's right, people. Was it Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? No, actually, there's no proof of that. There's no facts on that neither. Because it wasn't until 100 years after Jesus that the gospels were presented, and 180 years after that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's name were attached to it without any eyewitnesses or proof that any of them wrote it. So what are the Gospels? The Gospel is, here's a good example. You can read the Bible and that's great, but here's the box. I'm trying to discern my life outwardly rather than the kingdom within me. Jesus made it clear the kingdom is within you. You're not to observe. The kingdom doesn't come by observation. In other words, everything you need to know about your life doesn't come by outward things, which means it also doesn't come from written words. What does come from is being an epistle of Christ written in each other's hearts. Well, we don't know that they didn't write it, and we also don't know that they did. So we have no evidence either way, Luke. Mm-hmm. There is no evidence. There's hearsay, and unless we lived back there, we don't really know anything anyway. Now, if we want to go historically, we can go all the way back to the original stories, which are thousands of years before Israel is on the scene, Abraham's on the scene. Mm-hmm. And we can go back there to the ancients, and you'll find that every religion was based on shamanism. You'll also find that that the original teaching, which came out of Africa, got a fly in here. How did a fly get in here? We haven't even opened a door or a window. That out of Africa, the original teaching was oneness, sinlessness, frequency, no separation, eternal. That was the original. Now, of course, the Sumerian tablets, and you'll find that a lot of the Bible is a copy of the Sumerian tablets. What is it? Gilgamesh? Is that his name?
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh. All right. The story of Gilgamesh, thousands of years before Noah.
Demon fly.
Thousands of years before Noah is the same story. All they did was the Jews took it, put their names in it, put their characters in it, adjusted it to their culture. That's all that's happened through every religion, is an adjustment culturally. Oh, okay, let me take that. We do the same today. We do the same today. We go from being conservative to Pentecostal to charismatic to sonship to oneness to metaphysical to, whatever you want to call it. And there isn't anybody on the outs. They're already in. There isn't anybody on the outs. And so, we have to stop looking through the lens of everybody else's belief about God. Mm-hmm. Stop looking through the lens of, well, Paul said it this way. Well, Moses said it that way. That's great. Are you them or are you you? And guess what? Everybody in the Bible saw it different. Okay? They all had one agreement. Well, they all didn't have one agreement, but when you glean and get to the heart of it, that which is inspired in Scripture. Yep, I did say it, that which is inspired in Scripture. Because not all Scripture is inspired of God. Oh, but it says it. Oh, yeah. After they changed the text. That actually is not what it says. It says Scripture that is inspired of God is profitable. And so what we're looking for is that which is based in love. That which is based in oneness. That which isn't based in kindness, mercy, grace. That which is not in an us and them. Is that what the aliens you spoke to say too? Yes, sir, Luke. That's right, because you're an alien. Unless, of course, you're of the earth and not of the heavens. Isn't that amazing? Jesus said, I am not of the earth. I am of the heavens. I guess Jesus was an alien too. And so, I'm not going to argue with you, Luke. So let's keep it cool, or I'll just oust you. All right, let's keep it clean. All right. So I know what you're doing. And that doesn't fly with me. If you have an honest question, let's have an honest question. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be sarcastic, I'm going to boot you. All right. And so, and the reason I say that is because I don't play games.
Why waste our time
playing games? I'm not going to waste my breath trying to convince somebody who has questions that aren't questions but rebuttals because you have a box. Are you sure it's an honest question? Because everything I'm hearing from you seems to be go in the opposite direction in the frequency that I'm carrying right now. But I'll take your word for it, Luke.
Mm-hmm. And you can do a private message and you guys can talk later. Maybe even a phone call.
Yeah, because we're really on a different subject here. And I'm trying as best I can to answer you.
Yes.
But I also don't want to waste time answering your mindset. Okay? Oh, yeah. I've had visitations with... and I don't even like the term aliens, but light beings. Okay? Yeah. We can call them angels. We can call them aliens. We can call them ETs. We can do all of that stuff. But ultimately, what is it really? Well, it's all one spirit gazing in from a singularity into a multi-dimensional state. That's all it really is.
Right.
All right? And if you have a lot of questions, Luke, I'll be happy to answer them, just not right now. We're trying to stay on a specific subject. And usually I don't get a lot of people on here with those. I encountered it. And that actually, no, that question I can answer. because it goes along with what we're talking about here. How do you know it's real? Well, I encountered it. Well, how do you know the encounter was real? Because there was fruit that was produced from it that brought me to a place of peace, grace, and union. So we know that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, patience, kindness, meekness, all of these things. So whatever you are engaging with that produces that is truth. And again, you don't need a fact, because somebody else might be trying to put on the very same thing and they're not getting anything. How many times have we had tools that worked for some but didn't work for someone else? One person got up and said, well, God told me to bless so-and-so and I got blessed financially. So then everybody goes out and tries to bless so-and-so to get a blessing and they're just broke. Well, what happened? Well, one person was led by their spirit to do something that had nothing to do with getting a blessing. It had everything to do with the divine exchange that was defined only in the visible as out of a need to get. And now everybody that has that mindset of out of a need to get runs over here to do the same thing to try to get the same results, and they don't. And see, that's where we get stuck, okay? And so when I have an encounter, I don't just take every encounter I have as this is the ultimate reality and everybody needs to receive it. It's
not anymore.
Not anymore. It's my reality that I'm experiencing, and now I'm looking for the fruit of it. And when there is fruit, then I'm like, okay, there's some fruit here. Now I'll watch as people are drawn to me. This is how I know it's for other people. Is usually immediately after I get a truth and I get a breakthrough and I see fruit from that experience, people come out of the woodwork toward me and all of a sudden are in the same place I was just at. And all of a sudden I share what I just experienced and it now confirms with them and they level out. Okay.
I like what Marie just said.
Marie. When there's fruit, it takes fruit. That's right.
Oops.
Oh, okay. Here, let me fix it.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah. And so when there is fruit, it takes root.
I like that.
And I totally agree, because it's coming from a root system already planted in you, in which you're living out your life, not living out the facade of your life or the visible image as your ultimate reality. And so think about this. Where did he go? Luke. Think about this, Luke. And I apologize if I, corrected you too harshly there. We get a lot of that. And so, Luke, let me tell you this. All you have to prove your physical, visible reality is light flying through gray matter in your head. That's all you got. That's all you got. The only proof that your life is the way it is only experienced through your mind. The only proof that you have a life that you're living is in your personal experience of it. Now, others can say, well, yeah, but I'm having a personal experience too. Unless they're all part of your subconscious and are emanating as all these other people that are confirming they have a life, when it's really your subconscious confirming or believing that that is the only aspect of your life, is the visible. Okay? And so breaking out of the visible, or shall I say breaking out of the matrix, isn't to leave the visible. It's to simply find the heart of who you are hidden within the visible manifestation, and why visibility is important. All right? And just like Renee said, and I like that, Renee, that's perfect. We do not have, our personal experiences don't have to match with anyone else's experience. And I think that right there, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there. That's the truth. Yep. That's the truth that sets you free. When we do not have to agree doctrinally to love one another and to have a real love experience together, now we are actually living for our purpose. because that's your only purpose. Your only purpose is to live in love, not based on what others believe or don't believe, but on the fact that your beliefs have nothing to do with your relationship. And this is where a lot of people struggle, because they've been brainwashed and programmed into a religious state that says there's an us and them, that some are in, and I'm going to just say it the way it is. I came out of Christianity. Okay. Am I a Christian? That's my last name. I don't cling to any more religions. Am I in Christ? Yes. I love Jesus. I'm in Christ, but I'm out of the cultural religion. And the reason why is because I got tired of the us and them mentality, the arrogance that says we're the ones chosen and the rest of you are going to go to hell, you wretched sinners. That makes me want to vomit, and it is the opposite of Christ. Okay? It is the opposite of Christ. And there are plenty other religions that do the same thing, but not as bad as Christianity. Christianity is at the top of the heap when it comes to a cult mentality. Okay? And it's a separatism belief system that's very arrogant, and I can't stand it. And my commission is to dismantle that through love, and also by reaching people at an intellectual level where they are still caught in the matrix, by utilizing an anthropology view of Scripture, cultural view, allegorical view, historical view, and looking at where religion stemmed from. So we'll use that in degrees. But my ultimate place of where I love to stay is past all that, in just saying, can't we just love each other? Can't we just listen to each other's differences and rejoice in those differences, not as negatives or my need to compete, compare, or prove who's right or wrong, but can we do that to such a degree that it's just iron sharpening iron to allow me to glean from something I did not see before, to allow me to see the beauty of Christ in you, in your journey, that might be foreign to where I'm currently at. Can I see that in you? And then can I now see my own journey because I saw that in you? And I think there's part of our journey that is hidden from us when we are trying to discern if somebody else is of God or not based on what they believe. If we can let go of that, we'll actually unlock a whole nother side of ourselves that we couldn't see before or find before. And that, to me, is probably the greatest key to what life is all about.
Right.
Like Renee said, many spices. So there aren't really differences in the sense of different being a threat, but there are diversities in the sense of it being a beautiful spectrum of light and color. Yeah. Go ahead. Did you have something you want to share?
No, I was just going to thank God that there is diversity.
Yes.
How boring would it be if we all had the exact same experiences, the exact same thoughts, the exact same things happen in our lives? That would be completely boring. So thank God for diversity and the different expressions that everybody is carrying.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you don't want no
bland soup.
Yeah, you don't want no bland soup. You want alphabet soup. You want all the letters in there, all the people in there.
Right.
You want the love soup.
So my question, and so going back to Andrea, like, yes, you cannot explain your experience to other people in the sense of helping to ease their fears.
Yeah, you can't.
What you can do is share your heart. You can share your heart, and again, you sharing your heart isn't about changing their perspective of you. Yeah. Because if they are afraid, it's their own stuff.
Yeah.
Anywhere we are afraid for others, it's because of our own stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime we're trying to change somebody else, it's because of our perceptions of ourselves.
Yes.
And so, yes, the ultimate goal is to love people right where they're at, love people in their own experiences and expressions.
Yes.
And ultimately, you don't have to convince anybody of anything.
You don't.
Because that's just getting caught up in the game of religion.
Now you can have fun, in some areas, because you know when somebody is awaking and a rapid fire revelation starts to flow out of you, but you know they can't receive it. How many have been there? And you're going, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have shared. No, you should have, because you weren't really projecting your experience on them. You were inviting them out of the box, and what they have seen and heard, they cannot unsee or unhear. Mm-hmm. So they will constantly have to battle those mindsets that have been confronted by what you have released, for them to engage in it in their own journey that might look completely different than yours. Mm-hmm. And so that really,
I remember a time where, years ago, we knew a group of people. We were at this church, and there was a group of people who were complete drunks. Yeah. And drunk in the spirit, just laying hands on one another, just wanting to pray for one another, love one another. And then there was this other group of people just kind of observing, like, these people look crazy. They look out there. Yes. And what I said was, well, you may not understand what these drunk people are doing, but can you see the fruit in their lives? Can you see them loving one another, loving themselves, loving God, all of this stuff? And so I think when we are talking with people who may not understand, if they truly do want to sit down and talk to us, to just sit and say, what have you experienced? I want to know. Then share what you feel.
We love to hear other people's experiences.
Then share what you feel like you can share. Yes. But ultimately, you're sharing your heart. You're sharing how your experiences have changed your perspective of you.
Yes.
And you've learned to love yourself. You've learned to love your journey. You're not regretful. You're not, resisting things that are happening in your life anymore, or needing to even protect yourself. There is so much freedom in just being a part of this journey. So I just say, hopefully you can see the heart in the matter of people's heart in these situations.
Now Luke had a good thing there too. Unfortunately, most of those types of people, I haven't seen the fruit. Okay, now here's the key. We must then redefine, what are we looking for as fruit?
Right.
And I think, again, we've got our definition of fruitfulness, and then we have that which we haven't seen, that is fruit hidden in there. Mm-hmm. So what does that produce in you, Luke, when you don't see fruit in others, the fruit that you think you could see? So I'm going to use an example here. You don't have to answer that necessarily unless you want to, but that's a great response that brings us to the next place, because there have been plenty of people I have not seen fruit in, and I see their brokenness, and I see their fears, and I see their self-deceptions, and I see all of that. And now, if I'm triggered in it, if it makes me want to walk away as though there's something wrong with them, it's exposing something in me. But if there is no trigger there, then you are a mere reflection to them, for them to begin to come out of that pain and come into a place of embracing themselves. So we are all given to one another. We will never stop teaching one another. Mm-hmm. The thing is, what are we teaching? Are we trying to teach facts, or are we trying to teach truths? And truths are life experiences in the embrace of love and acceptance, and purpose being the dialogue of interaction, just because we can have it. It's not to obtain or get somewhere, since we're already complete. We're not lacking anything. We're whole. Everything that appears to be lacking is where we've yet to realize wholeness. So we walk through the contradictions that now begin to reveal more and more wholeness through the struggle. And so, but fruit is there. There's fruit. And a lot of times we might be seeing the opposite first. Now, here's something that really amazed me, and that is, why do we always have to have opposites in our life? Why? What is duality? Well, duality is not a curse. Duality is your ability to see the true. Okay? You would not even be aware of your own existence without duality. The light and the dark, the contrast allows you to see the opposite of what you're experiencing. Okay, so if I'm in darkness and duality and torment, that sets the stage for me to discern the opposite of that. If I am in light, but I'm trying to stay in the light and not mess it up, I'm going to experience conflict that makes me feel like I'm being pulled out of the light, which is the opposite, revealing to me a lie that I could be anything but light. Okay? And so we have this, the yin and the yang, however you want to put it. You let go of one, the other becomes unseen. It's not recognizable. So there's the backdrop and there's the forefront. And so that is called polarity. And so our duality is really polarity, which is a harness for allness. Okay, allness being the all-powerful God, divinity, harnessing itself in visibility through polarity to allow us to be aware of our own existence, to be conscious, to interact, to move forward, to unveil, to remember, to stabilize, in this current awareness of perfection and completeness of who we are as spirit. Okay. Sherry, you said, do our chemicals create all our illusions we call reality? Do our chemicals create all our illusions we call reality? DMT. At certain levels, yes. The DMT that is in your brain, which is the most strongest hallucinogen, and I want to do a video on this topic in more detail at some point. The chemicals in your brain are actually frequencies at the deeper level. You aren't biological, you are visible light. Visible light that concluded in a thought that was lower than itself, that got caught in a dream that thought it was reality, therefore manifested it as biology. Okay. But DMT in its true highest form, beyond chemical into frequency, is actually the greater understanding of the core of yourself as divinity. Okay. In the biological form, it is there at levels to wake up your mind to the reality. Most of our encounters with eternity and God are also have chemical reactions in the brain that are allowing our mankind version of us to participate with the reality of who we are. Because you're not mankind. You're not a human. You're not a soul. You're not a body. You are divinity that's simply thinking those things or creating a play in order for the invisible attributes of God to actually have a purpose, to actually have a direction, and to actually have an expression. And good to see you, Jeffrey. And so, as light beings at a subatomic level, you're strings of light. And those strings of light that are vibrating are only experiencing physical, and physical is the lower frequency of visible, are experiencing physical time, space, and matter for a purpose, but we can get entangled in that. But it has to do with your mind's interpretation of your environment that has brought you to matter. I mean, if you were to look at how much physical matter actually exists, it's, what is it? 0.00000000001% is matter. So you are frequency, you are light. But in our reduction, it wasn't a fall to reduce it necessarily, and it wasn't bad to reduce it. It was part of the show. It was part of the sitcom. And it was part of exhausting every possible side of everything for the purpose of divinity's all-knowingness to bear witness to itself and everything that's been known. Almost like gathering data. Divinity is unbiased. Divinity doesn't have a good day, bad day, isn't partial, isn't divinity or source is the knowing of all things and the experiencing of all things known. And all things known means that there would have to be a polarity and a duality to know all things. And so, but all those things that are known are not necessarily ultimate realities, but more or less a dream state in which we are engaging in to, through the harness as allness, to put on a face, to put on an interaction, to put on a purpose, to put on an expression. Okay. Now back to the DMT. DMT is releasing from your brain. Now, with the way the system is set up, the CIA has been using hallucinogens, metaphysics, frequencies for a long, long time to build their matrix, to keep people under the control and in the dream and submitted to their agenda. That's true. Okay, that is happening. But ultimately, all of that is also the government of one mind, our mind, that's still sifting through the matrix in which all of that becomes the internal dialogue at the same time. Okay, so we don't want to get caught up in external enemies coming out to get us. All the CIA is the internal dialogue of your excluded self that you've yet to realize was fully reconciled. All right. Now, DMT, what it does is when the pineal gland has been calcified through the fluoride, so we're going to look at this in the natural realm as well. When it's calcified through fluoride, through all the processed foods, through the frequencies that are being released in the air, and it's calcified, then you will not wake up from the dream. You'll stay subject to a natural three-dimensional realm in which you'll believe the political figures are there to help you, and it's all good, and you'll be stuck on left side, right side, Democrat, Republican. You'll live your life in that way, which is not a life. Okay, that's
in duality.
In duality, you'll be stuck in the illusion, and that's the illusion. Okay, doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place. It just means that it's an illusion when it becomes our ultimate reality. And so, when your pineal gland is calcified, the DMT, when it's releases, cannot gain the momentum to break you out of the dream. Okay, it can't do it. So what it will do is it will bypass the pineal gland. Now, when the pineal gland is open, the DMT flows in, magnifies, brings your logic and the lenses in which you view through broken lenses, the ego, brings that subject so it cannot manipulate you in the outflow of revelation or that which is being revealed from within. Okay? But when the pineal gland cannot magnify to overtake the structures of conclusion in the ego, then when it can't do that, then the ego dominates the experience. And so right now, to one degree, what that is saying is because one of the chemicals in your brain is one of the strongest hallucinogens on the planet, it is in every living thing, your life right now is being experienced as a simulation, but that DMT isn't a drug as though it's some man-made thing trying to drug you. It's part of the dream, and at a deeper state, that DMT is actually carrying the memory of your identity in eternity, in divinity, as one. Okay? So that's why when we have eternal experiences and we conclude on what those experiences are, and time goes by and we realize, oh, it didn't mean this, it meant that, and we kind of felt duped, and everything we tried to do in our life to fulfill what we saw is because we experienced it through the lens of the frontal lobe that manipulated our experience, at least our conclusion of it, and we entered into the sin of presumption, right? And we presumed because we were manipulated by our own ego and our own experience. This is why, and we're going to get into this as well, this is why with a lot of the studies going on right now, with the new arise in psychedelics to face themselves in plant medicine, it supersedes it gets past that frontal lobe, brings it subject, so that the DMT and the chemicals in the brain that are carrying the frequency of who you are as eternity is bleeding through that frequency in biology, and now causing you to have an experience outside of the manipulation of your ego, so that there can be no conclusion or reasoning that interrupts the process of conscious expansion and or expansion of consciousness.
So would you say the chemicals create it all the dimensions, or is the chemicals in our brains either...
It's a secondary repercussion of frequency. So you got to realize true state is frequency and light. All right. Slowed down state is manifesting as chemicals. Are there chemicals? There's no such thing. But there is in the dream.
Right.
You don't actually have chemicals. That's why when people say, well, yeah, man, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to take anything outside of me to have some experience. The kingdom is within me. Well, what can you take outside of you if you don't have a body and everything you're experiencing is your mind? So everything you're taking outside of you to stimulate, whether it be the pineal gland to decalcify, vitamins, supplements, whatever it is, whatever you're taking is from the garden of your mind that you're experiencing as an outside of you experience, but in reality is the kingdom within, in which you have been gazing inward. Everything you're seeing outward is just a mere reflection to say, hey, it's all inward, look in, don't think that it's outside of you. All right. But yes, on the side of chemicals, those chemicals are in your brain to release. Now, what's crazy, and I like watching Joe Dispenza because he goes into a lot of the different chemicals of the brain, where when you are having bliss and joy, it's releasing positive chemicals that actually are, curing cancer and removing diseases and preventing diseases and building your immune system and reversing your age, and all of these things are happening. And when you are thinking you're less than who you are in a negative perception, it's releasing chemicals that are causing sickness and causing disease and doing all of these different things, right? Yes, exactly, Sherry. Yeah, you got it. You explained it a lot quicker than I could. If an outside chemical creates hallucinations or dreams, then it must be happening inside naturally without an outside chemical, correct? Which means any outside chemical you take, you're simply taking from within your mind, but experiencing it as though it's outside of yourself, which would be the illusion. Now, I'm not giving people a license to go and just start eating a bunch of drugs or something, because really anything made by man, like, in fact, the number one killer is alcohol, by the way. The number one killer is alcohol. And there's a lot of propaganda right now around why plant medicine is illegal. And, once we get to the bottom of why it was made illegal was not to protect us, but was to actually keep us asleep, and that it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on plant medicine. It was a war on plants. It was a war on nature. It was a war on Mother Earth. And that was the whole reason why it was made illegal in the first place, and that Big Pharma could come onto the scene and get everybody addicted with man-made chemicals to keep them subject and keep them in the dream and keep money coming in to the few on top. Immediately I'm an advocate for plant medicine just by that statement alone. But I'm not encouraging people to go out and party hardy, because that was the whole problem in the 60s. It was all about partying. They took hallucinogens, psychedelics, and what happened? Well, they did it to find God. They were looking for God. So, their heart intention was good, but they ended up finding religion, and there was a level of freedom, but they settled in what was presented to them because they were finally accepted by the church. No churches would accept them. They finally get accepted, but they're accepted only at a level of as far as the church could be at that time. So the hippies come in and they simply ride on the platform of what is. And yes, it was a beautiful move of God. The Jesus movement was amazing. Unfortunately, it turned into another just religious denomination. that has no flow. It's not a movement, it's a museum now. And everybody wants to get back to it, and there's no going back. There's learning from it and going forward to a place to where, we're no longer using substances to escape ourselves or that leads us to religion. But now what's happening is psychedelics are coming back on the scene because they were there for a purpose that were misused. They weren't there to be a party drug. They were actually there to break open the pineal gland, to shift out of the ego and to realize oneness at an eternal level and a multi-dimensional level and even at a 5D level that could not be done except by years and years and years of meditation and breathing and fasting and sleep deprivation to pull off the same effect as plant medicine does. Okay. Again, I'm not advocating that anybody should go out and take it or do it. But I do believe that it does have its place. And I've let go of my own judgments that I had a year ago. I was out judging all this stuff, preaching against it, telling the people that I knew were doing it, they better stop. They don't need that. You can encounter God without it. And it's true, you can. But to what degree is your encounter tainted by your manipulation of the lens of the ego that cannot come subject because you don't even know it's awake? You don't even know you're viewing through it. And so pushing the mind into a place to where you no longer can control what you're experiencing is the place where you now get to validate the true intention of your pursuit and what you really have been seeing and experiencing the whole time from a deeper place. And so I tend to think because the brain is already operating in hallucinogens for you to experience your 3D, but through the frontal lobe of the structures of your conclusion in which you're experiencing the matrix, then plant medicine is also there to help eradicate that, shift us back in to a place in which we are seeing more clearly and more from the heart of the matter than manipulating ourselves through the ego. What are you trying to escape that you need the drugs? Well, most people, they're trying to escape the matrix. And yet the matrix is the conclusion of themselves that they're actually experiencing. And so what happens is because we think we're trying to escape an outward world, people will take drugs to try to feel good, but not have to face the broken parts of themselves that built their matrix or the structure and their definition of their life that looks terrible, not good enough. It's never going to work. I'm hopeless. I don't want to feel those things. Let me take this drug. I'll feel better. I'll just look over here. But when I come down, I need to take the drug again because I'm now facing this stuff again. It's no different than taking methamphetamines, heroin, or any of that if you take plant medicine to escape your pain. But the word psychedelic means mind manifested. So it's not about hallucinating. You really don't hallucinate. You actually come out of the hallucination of the 3D and you come into but only when you face yourself does this change your life, that you actually, because I used to do a lot of LSD and a lot of shrooms when I was young, and I did it to run from myself. Okay. I did have some experiences though, where I faced myself. And of course, at the time, I did not know that's what I was doing. But now looking back and then seeing a lot of the clinical stuff and proof today and a lot more understanding about it today makes sense that when you face yourself, it means you're going to walk through a death. They call it an ego disillusionment experience. And everything, all the structure of your existence is ripped away from you. And if you will simply say yes to that and embrace it, you will realize there is no death. I mean, I've heard testimonies of people that took a large dose of magic mushrooms. They were stage 4 cancer, You know, it was end of life. They're fearful of dying. And these are clinical studies where they would take it. There's actually a whole documentary on this on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind. And they took them and, or they gave the lady them, and she dies. In her mind, she dies. Not physically, but in her mind, she dies. And she goes to the other side, and she realizes there's no such thing as death. And she sees all her loved ones, and it's a glorious time. And then she sees this shadow in herself, and she doesn't like it. And so she starts cussing, you know, get the F out of me. And she's cussing. And the clinicians that are sitting are just sitting there listening, you know, as she's freaking out, yelling out. She doesn't even know she's speaking out. She thinks she's thinking, or she's thinking it. She thinks she's having an internal dialogue, but she's speaking it. Well, at the end of it, she goes, yeah, there was this shadow in me. And I told it to leave, and it left. Well, she goes back to the doctor, and she no longer has cancer. So the shadow was cancer, which was a mindset manifesting in her body. But once she realized she didn't have a body, she reset because she faced herself, because she embraced the pain, because she didn't repress the ego, but went through it, let it dissolve. She entered into a reality that reset her entire being and her DNA and allowed her to upgrade. Okay. Yep. Michael, I did that as well. And I've done this as well for years. All of my encounters have been natural, you know, just spending time. A lot of hours, though. A lot of meditation, a lot of hours. Again, I don't think plant medicine is for everyone, but I do believe there are people that have tried and tried and tried, and they can't break through. And now we could say, hey, let's take another 10 years and you know, of life to do that. Or they can get the same thing in a couple of months of you know, 2 or 3 high doses of plant medicine as well. And so either way, both works. And so here's where I'm at. I'm not gonna, you know, it's kind of like this. I had to look at it at another extreme. Do I believe in eating healthy? Yes, I do. I believe in eating healthy. If I eat junk, am I going to feel terrible? Yes, I'm going to feel terrible. Now, if I feel terrible, if I take one vitamin, am I going to be perfected? No, I'm going to have to take vitamins regularly. I'm going to have to take supplements for a period of time. Okay. So plant medicine is not a magic pill that fixes everything. It's simply a tool that'll move parts of your mind out of the way. And it's for those that have been in deep depression, PTSD, they've been hurting, they might have an infirmity, they've tried everything. They've tried prayer, they've tried meditation, and they're running out of time. And so I think that it's perfectly fine for those type of people to seek out help through, you know, guides or clinics that can help you to get free, you know, and also realizing that many people have taken this to get free from addiction. So they've taken plant medicine, got free from meth addiction, coke addiction, alcohol addiction, cigarette addiction, when all the prayers didn't even work. In fact, if you really want to go deep into this, you'll find that, what was it? The founder of Alcohol Anonymous was a Christian trying to get healed, going to the altar, trying to get free of alcoholism. And he had I think it was an LSD or a mushroom trip, and formed AA. You'll find that half of the book of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest bestseller came from a psychedelic experience. You'll find that, and I got this book recently that also it was interesting because, you know, I'm researching this because here's the thing. We can throw it to the side saying, oh, there's those hippies coming back. We need to get rid of all this. Or we can go, why are we in a parallel now of the Jesus movement, but now it's the Christ movement? Before it was separatism, now it's oneness. Psychedelics are coming back. They use it to escape thin, but now it's being used to face themselves and break open the pineal gland and expand the mind. You know, so what should we not pay attention to what's going on? I'm not saying we got to jump on a trend or jump on a bandwagon, because believe me, I am an advocate for wholeness, no matter what way it comes. I don't care what tool is being used, because who are we to decide there's only one way of doing it, right?
Right.
But this book, I don't know if you can see it there. I found it on Amazon. It's called The Psychedelic Gospels. Now, this is gonna, you see that picture there with Jesus with the mushrooms? That's an actual picture. I think it was in Europe or Ireland, one of the churches there. Those are some of the earliest depictions of the gospel in the icons of Christianity. You'll find pictures like Isaiah having a magic mushroom being touched to his lips by an angel instead of a coal of fire. And then Isaiah running with handfuls of mushrooms. You'll see the green guy with the upside down mushroom on his forehead. Tons of visuals in the church that in the 14th and 15th century were buried underground because the culture had changed and it was no longer the trend and no longer appropriate. And so they hid history. But you'll find that hallucinogens and specifically plant medicine, psychedelics were actually used to create most religions. Most religions came out of a psychedelic experience. You know, again, I'm not trying to tell people that, I'm not trying to advertise, go do this. I just want to give information of studies, research, pictures of actual artifacts and icons that actually point to all of this as being, man, I got to retitle this as something else. Because we ended up getting onto this other subject because it was asked about the DMT, but that's okay. You know, I'm going to go into a whole video on this because I want to disarm the fear, for one thing, and the judgments. Too many people out there, and I was one of them, and I had to, my foot was in my mouth, and I had to call up some people and say, yep, I was wrong. I was wrong. When I was judging this because of my own past negative experiences in my escapism and the indoctrination of the church that says you can't utilize anything around you or in your life to help you spiritually because you've got it all on the inside. Well, everything around your life is the inside. So use the allegorical plant life that is the, you know, garden of your mind if that's what you need. Use the vitamins that you buy at the store that are really not outside of you anyway, but just a placebo effect, helping you endure until you realize you're not biology, but light and frequency, okay? So we are utilizing all of these things, you know, and so, but one study said, and I'll finish with this, is that the same chemicals that release when, let's say you're on a high dose of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, one chemical that does or what it's likened unto is deep, vivid dream state. Same chemicals release, and also in a near-death experience, the same chemicals are releasing. So when we say death is an illusion, do we say that based on what we've studied alone, or have we experienced death to actually bear witness to it? And that's actually what plant medicine does, is it resets you, and it clears you out of the lie of death, the lie of separation, and brings you into everything that's being spoken today. All the oneness and everything that's being spoken today is really at the heart of those experiences. And so if that's something people believe they need to do, it'll come to them. It will come to them. And I believe that you don't have to seek these things out. I think it will come to you. And when it comes to you, you will then choose whether you're afraid of it, or whether you're more afraid to do that, or are you more afraid of yourself, or you're afraid to do that? Okay, so basically, we come to the place where we have to then choose if we're going to reject this because of our biases and because of the programming and the government conspiracies and all of that, or the fear of going insane, the fear of losing your mind, the fear of a bad trip. All of that is what the ego says and does to try to keep control and keep you in the structure of the matrix. Okay. Yeah, more afraid of doing it or not doing it, I guess. Yep, exactly. So again, I think whatever floats your boat, man. I have no judgment. I think that it's perfectly safe. If you look at the chart on drugs, you'll see that the number one poison is alcohol. After that is heroin, then coke, then meth. And I think it goes all the way down. Marijuana is somewhere there down near the lower end, and then I think you get to Tylenol and aspirin and all the stuff, all the over-counter stuff we take for headaches, and then there's sugar and all that. And right down at the very bottom is, guess what? Magic mushrooms, the most, what's the word? Non-toxic substance there is. And it isn't just doing something for you spiritually, it's actually recreating neurons, reconnecting your brain, creating new pathways in your mind, and actually breaking open the entire mind, activating the mind. And so it's activating the mind of Christ in many ways. And so it has biological help. It has healed people physically, emotionally, mentally, relationally. And it isn't a god, but it is definitely a technology that I think is out of this world. And I don't think it originated on planet Earth. I think it is definitely alien technology. And when I say alien technology, I mean higher self, put here for a purpose. And I think that that we are, entering into a time and an age, the age of Aquarius, which was what was being proclaimed in the psychedelic movement in the 60s. It's kind of funny that the song, This Is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius, that song was written by a band called The Fifth Dimension. And The Fifth Dimension wrote The Age of Aquarius. And I believe that that is a sign coming to us in the dream that we are in the age of Aquarius and we are entering the 5D realm of expansion, and that there are multiple things being used right now to bring people into that reality, and also to expose the offenses and the prejudice and the bias in the tools that are being used. And that the sooner we let go of our prejudice and our boxes and our conclusions of how far God can go,
right,
and just be, and just say, okay, we're here to experience life. Let's use wisdom. Let's have integrity. Let's be balanced, but let's not be fearful, and let's not conclude, well, hell no, I ain't ever going to do that. Those people are fools. Oh, all those people, they just want to escape. They're out of their mind. They're just drug addicts, okay? What are we now? Well, we're just Pharisees not wanting to let go of our ego. We're just saying, I want to stay religious. We're just saying, I want to stay in fear. We're just saying, I want to be, judgmental. I want to be critical. So let's at least get to the point where, whether people do it or not, let's get to the point where we're no longer judging it. And let's get to a place where we can be open to go from faith to faith and glory to glory. I mean, if we're not willing to grow, then we're going to stay I'm staying in my traditional belief, and this is as far as I go. Well, you ain't ever going to grow. You're stagnant, and you're just going to stay in that place.
And that's okay for some people.
And that's okay. Just don't drag the rest of us down, because, we're not going to listen to the critical input. We're going to let this thing fly. Okay. And so I like what you put there, Marie, sorry. I think DMT is a powerful tool and can help regroup thoughts. Totally true. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Marie, but according to kind of earliest documents, Samaritan tablets and that kind of thing, and also the way the mind works, there is supposedly a shutoff in the brain through the frontal lobe that wants to shut down the DMT before it can cycle through the body. And by the time the DMT gets into the digestive process, and I don't know the technical terms for this, but there's another switch to shut it off, to try to shut down the DMT from regrouping your thoughts as the natural mind is utilizing it in a 3D state. Now, some of the ancients have said that, and this is back to the alien stuff I read about, because that's the earliest story ever told, by the way, thousands of years before the Bible. Let us make man in our image was actually, according to that, the Anunnaki, which would have been beings from outer space that came and created hybrids known as humans through very advanced technologies that were multiple races of star beings, which, you know, makes sense. Morning star, Abraham looked to the stars, you know, and all of that. So anyway, supposedly, according to the earliest writings, the Anunnaki wanted to make us subjects, so they shut down our pineal gland. And when we were, according to their writings, as the hybrids were made, the DNA was put together, you know, to shut down an overproducing of the chemicals that would wake you up to the 5D, that would break you out of being subject to the Anunnaki that were pretty much making us slaves to mine the earth of gold for their planets at the time. And Sherry, I also agree. Could the blood-brain barrier be the shutting off of the pineal fluids? Yes, definitely. I agree that breaking through that, we know that with technology, we can't always, there's a lot of things that have a hard time getting through the blood barrier. So yes, definitely. It has to come from the inside, and it has to break through. It has to be able to multiply to a height. That's why a lot of the people that are taking, you know, the BUFU, which is the 5-EMO DMT, which is from, it's a substance that a toad sweats, if I'm pronouncing it right, BUFU or BOFU, I can't remember. Anyway, it's a toad, and they take it and they mix it and they smoke it, and they take 3 big hits and they're gone. It's a 15-minute experience, and what it does is it magnifies the DMT, releases more, and it prevents the shut-off valve in your digestion and in your brain, so that you get a full circulation and a full breakthrough. Okay, and then there's the lower level DMT, which doesn't necessarily take you to that height, but will take you to a degree. And I mean, there's all these different kinds. But again, I don't want to freak people out. I don't want people thinking, oh man, Brian is off his rocker.
Which people already think.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. They already think that, you know, oh, he's become a hippie. He's gone off the deep end. Nope, I'm actually probably more healthy than I've ever been in my life. And I do plan on.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing the research.
Correct.
Looking for things, being able to be, you know, be able to just love people where they're at.
Yes, yes.
And so to be non-judgmental.
Be non-judgmental, right. Exactly. And so, but you know, one of these days I'm going to do a whole video on all the research, over 400 hours of research. I've got to be convinced of stuff. So I got to research everything. I got to know what I'm talking about, know what I'm seeing, and I got to see all these different sides of it to hear every perspective, so right. I can understand what's going on.
And you know, for somebody who's like me, I don't do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn to not be judgmental, that he is that way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to push it upon me that I'm not.
Yes.
Again, prime example of just loving people where they're at and not having to make him be like me or change him or fix him. Because if I did try to fix him, it would just be coming from my own fears.
That's right.
Of him not being like me.
That's right.
So I can just be me and he can be him. And we can actually have peace and love between one another because we're not trying to change one another.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So we'll do another whole video.
That was a good wraparound.
We'll do another whole video on plant medicine, and I'll share some of my own experiences and some other people's experiences that I've heard as well. And I think it'll be good because we need to talk about this stuff. We don't need to put it under the rug and just say, oh, well, that's those people. We need to talk about this because it's coming to center stage for a reason. That's emphasizing so much more than just taking plant medicine or psychedelics, or the reminder of the Jesus movement, why that movie is out right now, and what is really being emphasized here that is bringing us to an upgrade and right. really preparing us for something
right.
that's going to blow our minds, where we realize a lot of the things that we believed that we thought were the truth, we're going to wake up and go, oh my gosh, that had nothing to do with what my life really is.
Right. Because ultimately, anything that is taboo, it's because people have conclusions upon them. So when we are afraid to talk about things that are taboo, we get stuck in the whole duality of it all. But if we can just have a conversation, and if you don't want to have a conversation, that's okay.
That's okay.
Don't hop on.
Don't hop on. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yes.
You know, but
you are okay to just be you.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Don't try to change people that want to have just a conversation, because they are not afraid to ask questions, to be in conversation about things that are they don't know about.
Yes.
And it's okay to not know about something.
That's right. That's right.
So
this is beautiful today.
We love you guys.
We love you guys. We got to drive. So this is the longest video we've done.
I was like, holy moly.
I'm like, wow, I can't. We were supposed to do a 1 hour and then drive. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to go longer. So it was wonderful with all the questions and all the responses here.
Yes, guys.
Thank you so much. And let it be. That's right, Sherry. Let it be. And so we will see y'all soon. This weekend we will be live in New York, and it is going to be off the hook. It's a whole new flow. So I do expect people's minds to be blown.
Awesome. Right? Love you guys.
Love you. We'll see you. We'll see you soon. And we'll see you this weekend in New York for some of you. And we will be live. God bless y'all. Bye-bye.